Clubbers of Reddit, what is the most desperate thing you have witnessed in a nightclub? The sole nightclub in the town, about 10,000 people in rural Yorkshire, where I grew up, and the only place open past midnight, had some grim sights in it. The average age was probably about 20, but the range was usually about 15-60. There was a chip kebab pizza shop in the club, so you quite often saw people dancing with a pint in one hand and a styrofoam box of chips in the other. But the really desperate part was the revolving dance floor. I don't know why the club had this, but it was awful. It turned into a kind of pervert sushi bar. Just desperate men stood round the edge, beckoning and trying to dance with the girls in the middle, and when they got rejected they'd just wait for her to go round a time or two more, have a bit more to drink, then try again. This would make a hilarious comedy sketch. I live in a university town and there's this old guy, at least 60, maybe even in his 70s, who frequents the same bars the students do. He wears a sequin blazer and a pair of short speedos. I don't even know why he shows up. He always looks so scared and uncomfortable. I saw a girl and a guy screaming at each other. They go separate ways. 10 minutes later, she is apologizing to him, but he is dismissive of her. She gets desperate, kneels in the middle of the dance floor and starts blowing him. At this point, half the crowd is cheering. He raises his arms victoriously as her girlfriends frantically try to pry her away from his dong in this infinitely embarrassing moment. The image of girls preventing another girl from giving a blowjob is a funny one. I use the term friend loosely, but I know a guy who went up to this hot chick in a bar and said, "I will literally crap my pants right here right now if you'd go home with me later." She said, "Go on then." And so he did. Right then and there. She did not go home with him later on. Wench didn't keep her word. Not worthy of his dong. There is a regular 30+ guy at a student nightclub that I frequent. He always appears to be sober and will just walk around by himself, not dancing. He will then stand behind girls and sort of stroke their legs until they notice and move away, tell him to frick off. I don't think he is even attempting to pull any of these girls. I think he just gets satisfaction out of touching 19-year-old girls' bums and seeing how long he can get away with it. I don't smoke, but was in the outside smoking area of a club talking with my friend, who did smoke. Suddenly very attractive girl comes to me really close, stares into my eyes and starts making out with me, then releases me and stares at me and says, "Oh yeah, I was wondering if you had a spare cigarette." I didn't, so she smiled, tapped my nose and left, leaving me slightly confused, depressed and very erect. A good friend told me a story about how she went on a girls' night out and one of the girls gave a guy a blowjob in the bathroom. When he'd finished, she kept it in her mouth, went straight back to the dance floor and kissed the first random guy she could find. This just felt like an appropriate moment to share that story. Girl needed to wash her hair down for some reason. All the sinks in the bathrooms were being used, so she went into the men's bathroom and proceeded to put the top of her head up against the wall of the urinal and used the urinal flush to wet her hair. I was the guy pee right to the left of her witnessing all this happening. She probably had puke in her hair. Once I landed at a pub, got a drink and went to the loo. On my way in the door to the toilet, some girl pushed past on her way to the toilet. She didn't make it and puked in the back of my hair, which I had just washed and was waist length long and curly. WTF woman. I went out with two girlfriends. We were 21 at the time of mine to a club and this 40+ dude constantly hanged next to us all night. At one point he came up to me and asked if they were mine and drunk me was like, "Yeah, they're with me tonight." And he suddenly looked at me and grabbed his wallet and said, "How much for the blonde?" You really should have bilked him for all he had and gotten out of there. Someone walking around looking for unfinished drinks and drinking them. Plot twist, it's me when I'm already drunk, poor and looking for free drugs. It's called minna sweeping where I'm from. My girlfriend at the time had some friends in from out of town. She went downtown to drink and dance with them, and called me around 130 to pick them up. I showed up at the club and found them dancing with each other upstairs. They were four pretty girls about 23-25 years old. I greeted them and then leaned against a rail and waited for them to be ready to leave. Along came a pudgy, short, disheveled, very drunk guy leaned against the same rail. He tried to join them and dance. but they got rid of him twice. He asked me why I wasn't trying to dance with one of them after he got rejected twice. I said, just watch. I'll go home with all of them when the bar closed at 2. I said to my girlfriend and her friends, you're ready to go, and left with all 4 leaving drunk bro very confused. This guy was walking around giving business cards, and if I recall correctly it said please have fun with me tonight. I have a lot of skills and I'm fun. This girl I know was attempting to dance with this guy at a club, but she has no rhythm whatsoever, so she was just gyrating on his crotch with her butt. It looked like she was listening to a different song. The guy ended up throwing up. I like to think it was because of her dancing and not all the alcohol he drank. I just pictured Ken Jeong drunkenly swaying while this girl gyrates, then unexpectedly throwing up on her back. 10/10. Would recommend. A drunk girl came stumbling out of a club and the people in line started pointing at her backside. Used condom was hanging out of the backside of her dress, and she was just parading down the street not knowing any better. Really miss the cross in Sydney. Hahaha, I'm a Sydney sider myself. Me and my mates like to say Jesus really is dead on the cross. Not a club, but at a festival I saw a girl swallow an ecstasy pill, then minutes later she vomited. Then her and her girlfriend started sifting through the vomit to eventually find the pill and re-eat it. New. Saw a guy vomit in a urinal trough, picked his false teeth from the trough and placed them back in his mouth whilst searching for an E in the pee vomit lake, which he also found and placed back in his mouth. That guy deserves to go to heck for that act of disgustingness. When I went to celebrate my first summer holiday with my friends when I was 16, there were surprisingly many old, retired guys trying to hit on 16-year-old girls in the clubs by trying to grind onto them from behind. I was confused by feeling bad for them and finding them insanely creepy at the same time. That's quite repulsive actually, mega creepy. At the bar with my buddy D&M, this super skanky girl walks up to us falling all over herself, drunk, cloths messed up, an absolute train wreck. She says to us, so have any of you ever hooked up with someone you just met? Me and D point to M and I say he has the biggest dong among us. Then we both bolt in different directions, leaving him standing there stunned. He had just turned around from the bar, so the night goes on, bar closes down. We can't find him. Finally we say frick it and leave. We get to the parking lot and he is hip deep in this girl in our ride. Bros. Once, when I was in a club and went to the toilet and washed my hands, there I saw this desperate guy going to a club, right in the mirror. One time I was Pasha in NYC, in the VIP section for some reason. There was this set of older ladies there. They are probably around my age now, 28. Who paid the extra cash to celebrate an actuary chick's birthday. Suddenly, like halfway through the night, the bodyguards come in and kick these girls out so some young hot things my age can come in. I hear them exclaim they said they'd let us in if we made out. Pretty sad bouncers, dude, especially messed up to kick out a paying customer on their birthdays. Really stuck with me. Still hate that place. Terrible move. Older customers tend to actually have money to pay for things like bottle service. The 30-40-year-old guys hitting on girls that could be as young as 14? Yep, the bars across the river from where I live are 18+, yet are notorious for letting in people as young as 14 as long as they had a plausible id. These guys also all look the same. Fancy jeans, watch, polo with the collar popped. The guys who film girls dancing. These guys don't work for the club either. Saw one guy get tossed from a club for this. Sounds like Hull. Karaoke bar a couple years back. I'm there with a friend that everyone in the venue thinks is my girlfriend. She's not. Someone gets up and sings. They are reasonable, above average for the place, but every time the song has a break in it they say check me out on MySpace, look up, name, download my tracks. So that's the answer to the question. Someone trying to self-promote their music in a karaoke bar and plugging their MySpace account in 2013. But what happened next was hilarious. I turned to my friend and say, you know what would be hilarious? If the next person got up and said I hope one day to be half as good as name thinks they are. I wasn't serious. She thought I was. Got called up next and said it. Half the place laughed. The other half thought, oh my god, did she just say that? Savage. Not at a nightclub. But this one time I was at this bar and saw this really drunk guy approach this woman, who was with a group of friends, and tried hitting on her. He wasn't being creepy or anything, and she was being pretty polite about it, but after a few minutes he peed his pants. All the girls broke into a fit of laughter and the guy had the most embarrassed look on his face I've ever seen. He turned around and stumbled quietly back to his friends, who took out to get him a cab. I felt so bad for him. Saw an extremely drunk paraplegic guy almost get himself beat down by the surliest butch bull dyke you have ever seen. He came up behind her and grabbed her butt, asked her for oral. She wheeled him away like dude gtfo. He came back and did it again. All her friends had to hold her back from pummeling him. He was like FUBATCH. I got money, pulled a wad of cash out and started flaunting it off at her and called her the good old C word as loud as he could. She charged back and lunged on him. Everyone intervened. He got the wind knocked out of him was all, but I thought I was going to see the smallest little guy get his butt beat in a wheelchair. The look of despair in his face was sad when he had his money out flashing it around. Just cause he was pera doesn't mean he didn't need an butt kicking. There is a little corner bar near my place, generally very low key and friendly. There is some old guy who shows up every Friday night on his Rascal and his Colonel Sanders tux and his Elvis shades. He makes his way between all the tables where the women are. They always kind of giggle and I've always thought they found him kind of charming and cute. Turns out he tends to make comments about BJs and how his joint still works and he just needs a 20-year-old woman to work him over. Everyone I've talked with thinks he's really creepy and they all try go the other way when they see him coming. Who knew? I used to bounce for a small club in Seattle. One night we were at capacity. No one else allowed in. We had a pretty small line waiting to get in, and at the front was a party of girls in their mid-20s. It went like this. Hey man, will $50 get us in? No, sorry, I could be fined. A couple minutes later. Hey, dude, our friend is inside, and we're supposed to meet her. Sorry, I don't make the rules. A couple more minutes later. Seriously dude, let us the frickin', you're being an butthole. Nope. Gotta wait until a few more people leave. Later, if you let us in, I'll suck your dong. I'm sure my girlfriend wouldn't appreciate that. She's probably fat anyways. A couple minutes later, $100. Listen, I can't fricking let you in, alright. Sometime later. Listen you piece of crap. I've watched 3 people leave. You can let us in already fricking butthole. Well, now you're not getting in at all. So I'll let in the people waiting behind them. I've never seen someone so dang insistent. They could have literally walked down the block and found somewhere else. But their friend was inside. There's this absolute toilet of a venue that I frequent that is notorious for this kind of garbage. I walked in there once with a bunch of mates for a 21st. Off to one side of the bar, kind of out of the way, I saw this bloke sitting in an armchair whilst a girl straddled him with her shirt off, rubbing her tea in his face. Keep in mind, this isn't a strip club, so this was out of the ordinary. Being half cut, I immediately charged over to the guy, who was waving his arms around like he was suffocating, and high-fived his outstretched arm. The girl turned to look at me, tears running down her face, and said, completely sober, please don't encourage him. This is already humiliating enough. I had no idea how to respond, so I wandered off to look for my mates. By the time I found them and told them what happens, the guy and girl were gone. Left her bra behind though, and a fat bald bloke had it wrapped around his head. At least I assume it was hers. He may have brought it himself. Overall, an odd night. What the frick, dude? I used to work in the bar and the amount of BJs I was offered for free drinks used to amaze me. I only took 4 in the end, but still, a BJ for a drink. Desperate. Phrasing. I once heard a girl saying to a friend of hers, you should definitely make out with him. He will give you a free drink. Tit for tat, so to speak. My boyfriend went to get some drinks. A guy come up to me at the bar and first thing he told me that he was a virgin and asked if I could be his first. He was desperate as heck. Didn't even tell me his name or nothing. Just asked to do the nasty. It was kinda funny and pathetic. I bet that line works for him. I had a friend who did something similar. Said it worked like 1 out of 10 times. This guy came up to me and asked if I wanted to dance. My male friend was with me and just went to the bathroom, and I told him that I was just waiting for my friend. He was not attractive to me and really creepy about asking me. He then proceeded to stand and stare at me, which I was uncomfortable with, so I walked around the area a few times while he followed me around. Then my friend came out of the bathroom, and while we danced with each other, the kid who asked me to dance stared at us until we moved to a different area and he presumably couldn't find us anymore. Or you couldn't see him anymore, lol. I'm a lesbian, but I usually hang out with gay men. I don't understand the stereotype that we don't get along because I love these guys to death. I used to go to the clubs like 5 nights a week with my best friend and workout buddy. We found that people liked watching us dance with each other in seductive ways. It got him attention from the gentlemen and me attention from the ladies. It worked out very nicely in both our favors. So we dance all over each other until a more gender appropriate partner came a knocking. One of our straight girlfriends used to come out with us too. Let me first say that I absolutely adore her, but she had issues. She was dealing with a divorce. She was also about a decade older than all of us and really just liked the attention she got from all these hot young men. When she saw how my friend and I danced together, she decided it was okay for her to dance with him in the same way too. He didn't seem to mind at first. He's a huge attention W like myself. But then she started taking it too far. She would rip his shirt off, bite his stomach, lick his chest. I felt bad for her. She was lonely, but she was looking for intimacy in exactly the wrong place. There was this dude that was trying to get my attention for the longest of time, but I wasn't interested, so I ignored him. Near the end of the night, me and the guys are dancing and I didn't notice said dude dancing behind me on the Go-Go Boy stage. And homeboy had the nerve to teabag me and then try to play it off like he was joking. Now that I think about it, it's kind of funny, but I was pee when it happened. The guys who wander around the club aimlessly, go up behind girls and start grinding them out of nowhere. Sometimes it works, but it usually weirds them out unless you're exceptionally attractive or they are equally desperate. Source: was that guy once. Was in college at the time and it was a sort of spring break type week. One of the nights we went to a nightclub and they had the creepiest DJ playing. He was in his late 20s I think, and he kept turning the music off and asking girls to flash their tea. Nobody would, so he kept doing it. It kept getting sadder from there. He would repeatedly turn off the music and beg for girls to flash their tea. He started getting really angry. Even the guys in the club were getting pee off and creeped out. This went on the entire night. I think in the end one girl did it for a free shirt. Note this was in a small enough city, not a big party destination. Dude I know had his glass eye pop out on the dance floor. They had to stop the music and turn on all the lights as all the staff and club goers hunted for it. That's actually pretty good that everyone was willing to do that. It's not what happened at the club, it's what happened after. We all went back to my buddy Will's house with a few girls. I didn't invite any of them back, but the girls seemed to like me a little more than the guy they came back with. Throughout the wee hours of the morning, he started getting a little bothered by it. Finally, when we all went to bed and I was cuddling with one, his drunk butt walks out of his room and yells, "Why the frick is no one cuddling with me?" Hahaha, I just about died. That's a great way to make that happen. I've gotten laid by telling at a party about how upset I was that I wasn't getting laid. I've found that the trick is to sound really pathetic and drunk. Apparently women love that crap and can't wait to bang. I saw Dylan Francis in Barcelona this August and there was this girl totally crap faced. Her friend was comforting her on the stairs inside the club and the drunk girl would grab at guys passing by. One guy can see how wasted she is, so he starts grabbing at her too and gets her off the stairs to dance, make out, etc. They get pretty hot and heavy, so they approach me asking for a condom and I suggested he check the bathroom and he leaves to go look. Another guy had been watching this crap faced girl and swoops in. They begin to make out and he slips his hands down her front. The two of them then break away to another area behind a curtain and I peek behind to see shapes in the dark moving around and I lose interest, but I do see the first guy return from the bathroom looking for her. I thought, man, one day some guy is going to give her a diamond ring and profess his undying love to her. Another from when I was working on a party island. A girl was wandering around the club kissing guys and occasionally just flashing the crowd. It was sort of so cringy that the whole room was watching her and making comments about how embarrassing she was being. We notice a guy trailing around behind her, so I ask if he knows her and he sadly says it's his GF. People start telling him he needs to tell her to stop if he's not happy with her getting off with other guys, but he says she won't stop. Everyone feels bad for the guy. Later that night we see him on the street and notice that she's prowling around looking for men. She spots a guy and walks up and grabs his face and starts making out. The guy seems shocked but keeps kissing her. The girl's BF walks over and taps the guy on the shoulder. We are all expecting him to say something like "That's my GF," but actually he goes, "Excuse me, can I have a piece of your chicken?" And the guy getting kissed sort of moves his head with the girl still attached to his mouth and offers BF the box of fried chicken. BF then wanders off smiling with his chicken. Scrawny dude got on his knees behind a BBW black chick while she was chatting to her friend in the smoking area, and I think he sniffed her butt. Oh. I thought the title read "Chubbers of Reddit. What is the most desperate thing you have witnessed in a nightclub?" As a chubby dude I found this immensely entertaining. A 6-foot tall Swedish girl, in a little black dress and heels, makeup done to the nines, dancing and projectile vomiting her way across the floor. And the worst part was, people parted to let her through, and then just kept dancing on the puke. I decided I was far too sober for that crap and noped on out of there. We were at a nightclub and my buddy went to the bathroom to take a crap. I realized he came back with a bouncer attached to his neck. I guess he got into a fight in the bathroom, so me and him and a few were standing outside. He goes on and takes out a cigarette. Now keep in mind that the walls of these bars are like the stony ones, like gravel. I don't know how to explain it. The ones that have many rocks sticking out. Anyways, he leans against the wall, lights his smoke, pulls down his pants and shoots on the wall. He's not done. He proceeds to rub his butt all over it, smearing the crap like Picasso. Looks at me and says, "Let's get out of here." Saw the guy buy 11 Georgia bums and wait at the door to the smoking area handing them to random girls. That tall walked off immediately. I walked into a bathroom to witness not one, but two guys taking dumps in urinals. The fist bump they gave each other as they sat on the urinals is something I'll never forget. Bit of a different story. I was 18 with about 5 other friends when but my dad walks into the club with a couple of male-female friends. He was totally hammered and thinking he was so cool because he was 50 and clubbing with his mates. He kept trying to prove this by buying the 6 of us rounds of drinks and continuously saying, "Aren't I cool guys, I'm clubbing. Pretty cool." Looked over at the couches. Some very drunk girl was giving this, seemingly random, dude a lap dance as if her life depended on it. Best part, though, he was blatantly texting and uninterested the whole time. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.